Nobody said anything for a long time. That was the part nobody talked about afterward. Not the trade. Not the surgery results. Not the contract number that made the room go cold. What nobody talked about was the silence that came before all of it. The silence inside Dodger Stadium on a Tuesday morning when the news began to arrive, one piece at a time, like storm clouds gathering over the San Gabriel Mountains. It started with Will Smith. Then it became something else entirely. The MRI results came back on a Tuesday. That detail matters because Tuesday is not supposed to be a day when franchises hold their breath. Tuesday is a travel day. A film session day. A day when players eat breakfast slowly and trainers tape ankles and nobody thinks about what the season might look like without a certain name in the lineup. But this particular Tuesday was different. Will Smith had gone in for his follow-up evaluation 3 days after the initial concern was flagged. The Dodgers had said very little publicly. The words they used were careful. Measured. The kind of language that a front office chooses when it is buying time, when it is waiting for information that it is not yet ready to share. When that information arrived, the people who saw it first did not speak immediately. They looked at the results. Then they looked at each other. Then they called Dave Roberts. Roberts had been in his office when the call came through. A person familiar with the situation described the moment simply. He sat down. He didn't say much. He just sat down and looked at the wall for a moment. That was enough to tell you everything you needed to know about what the MRI had shown. Will Smith is not just a catcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He is the architecture of the team's defense. He is the voice behind home plate that the pitching staff trusts. He is the person who calls a sweeper in a bases-loaded situation and knows, before the ball is thrown, exactly what the hitter is thinking. Losing him for any significant period of time is not a lineup problem. It is a structural problem. It is the kind of problem that forces a front office to make decisions it was not planning to make. And that is exactly what happened next. The players found out in stages. Some heard from coaches. Some heard from teammates. Some walked into the facility that morning reading their phones in the parking lot, slowing their steps without realizing it, the way people do when they are reading something that requires them to stop moving. Several players visited Smith at the hospital that same day. The people who were there described the room as quiet. Not the artificial quiet of a professional setting. The real kind. The kind that exists when a group of grown men who are paid to be competitive and resilient are confronted with something that competition and resilience cannot fix. Smith was in good spirits, by all accounts. He spoke. He even laughed at one point. But the players who came to see him left the hospital looking different from when they arrived. One member of the organization, speaking without attribution, said it plainly. You could see it on their faces when they walked out. It hit them. This is real. That word, real, would come to define everything that followed in the next 48 hours. Dave Roberts finalized the trade on Wednesday morning. 3 players. 1 transaction. And the other team on the other end of the line was the New York Yankees. A 3-4-1 deal. The Dodgers sending 3 pieces to New York in exchange for a single player whose name, once it became public, reframed the entire conversation about what the Dodgers were doing and where they believed they were going. The details of the trade itself are significant. But what is more significant is the timing. Roberts did not wait. He did not hold meetings for 3 days and form committees and schedule follow-up calls. He identified the problem, he assessed the options, and he moved. That is a certain kind of management. The kind that does not ask permission from the calendar. When asked about the trade later, Roberts chose his words carefully. The way he always does when the decision was difficult but the direction was clear. He said the organization had prepared for contingencies. He said the trade reflected confidence in the players going to New York. He said the Dodgers were not in the business of standing still. What he did not say, but what everyone in the room understood, was that Will Smith's MRI had made the trade not just possible but necessary. The surgery results had changed the equation. And when the equation changes, you recalculate. Shohei Ohtani found out about Smith the same way most of the team did. But what happened after that is where the story takes a turn that nobody had entirely anticipated. Ohtani had already been in contact with Smith's family. He had reached out privately, in the hours before the hospital visit, before the trade announcement, before any of the news became public. That is a detail that got lost in the noise of everything else. But it is a detail worth holding on to. Because it tells you something about who Ohtani is when the cameras are not pointed at him. He visited Smith. He sat with him. He didn't perform concern. He just showed up. And then, the next morning, Ohtani had a meeting of a completely different kind. The meeting with Ben Rortvedt was not on any official schedule. That is the first thing to understand. This was not a calendar item that had been announced. It was not flagged in any press notes. It was the kind of meeting that exists before it becomes a story, the kind that is only known afterward, once the implications have already begun to unfold. Ben Rortvedt's representative sat across from Ohtani and his team in a private setting somewhere in the Los Angeles area. The specifics of the location were not confirmed. What was confirmed, by multiple people with knowledge of the situation, was that an offer was made. And the number on that offer stopped the conversation. There is a version of this story where the contract offer is just a number. A very large number, certainly. A number that would make Ohtani, already the highest paid player in the history of professional baseball, even wealthier than he already is. That version of the story is accurate in the narrow sense that numbers are accurate. But that version misses the point entirely. Because what made the room go quiet was not the dollar figure. What made the room go quiet was the structure of the offer. The terms attached to it. The length. The clauses. The implications for what Ohtani's next several years would look like, where he would be, what he would be doing, and what he would be giving up in exchange for a number that almost no one in that room had expected to hear spoken out loud. One person with direct knowledge of the meeting described the moment simply. He listened to the whole thing. He didn't react right away. He just listened. And then he asked one question. The question itself was not disclosed. But the fact that he asked only one is telling. It means he understood the offer completely. It means he had already, in the time it took for them to finish explaining, calculated what it would mean and what it would cost. It means the meeting, despite its shocking opening, was not chaos. It was chess. Ohtani has not commented publicly on the meeting. His representatives have not confirmed or denied the specifics of what was offered. The Dodgers front office, when asked about the situation, gave the kind of answer that is technically not a denial but functions as one. They said they do not comment on speculation regarding player contracts. The reporters in that press conference nodded and wrote that down. They all knew what it meant. What remains, when you strip away the noise of all three storylines, is a single image that captures something true about this particular moment in Dodgers baseball. Shohei Ohtani, in the span of 48 hours, visited his injured teammate in a hospital room, watched his manager complete a franchise-altering trade with the Yankees, and sat across a table from people who placed in front of him a number so large that it required only one question. He did all of this without making a public statement. Without calling a press conference. Without performing any of it for the audience that watches his every move. That restraint is its own kind of answer. The Dodgers are a team in motion right now. Will Smith's surgery has forced decisions that nobody wanted to make. The trade with the Yankees has changed the roster in ways that will take time to fully understand. And somewhere in Los Angeles, Shohei Ohtani is sitting with an offer that has not yet been accepted, and has not yet been declined, and the entire baseball world is waiting to find out what that one question was, and what the answer turned out to be. The room may have gone cold when they said the number. But Ohtani, by all accounts, did not shiver. He just listened. And then he asked his question. And whatever comes next, that moment, the stillness of it, the precision of it, is the moment that will define this chapter of the story. Not the trade. Not the surgery. Not even the number. The question.